All right, let me bring in another political voice here, and Ajay Alok, General Secretary of JDU, joins us. Thank you so much, sir. Very crucial to know from you as to where do you think, what is your view as far as GST now that we are seeing a recommendation? Of course, it's a recommendation stage. It will go to the GST Council and the discussions will happen. But at the stage that we look into the 15 to 15.5% R&R, what is your party's view on it?
See, there were three contentious issues pending before the GST committee, of which all the parties are having discussions, of which JDU was also a part. Now, this CEA committee, which I believe is the Economic Advisory Committee to the Prime Minister, they have given their recommendation. So their recommendation has also come, and we'll have to look it into totality, that find what are the objections and what is the recommendation, and ultimately how we can come to a mutual consent. I do understand, and we fully agree that GST is a necessity. But certain things which have been raised by the Congress and other opposition parties have also been looked into. The ruling party is opposed that GST should be brought under the constitutional cover, of which we also feel that if we get the GST under the constitutional cover, so whenever there is a change, the whole house has to be taken into confidence, which is in a way good for the nation because Parliament has to be taken into consideration whenever there is a change in GST. So all these issues will be taken together. And this 1% rate and then 17 to 18%. Now we are seeing that there are three slabs they have recommended, the lower slab, the standard slab and the higher slab. So all their recommendations, we'll have a meeting again and we'll sit together and look into their recommendation and see what is the best possible factor where we can take up the issues.
Mr. Alok, are your conditions also similar to what we'd heard as far as Congress is concerned, which is about 1% additional tax levy that needs to be scrapped? The R&R or the revenue neutral rate should be lower than 18%. And are you stressing on the fact that the rate should be part of the constitutional amendment?
No, we are not pressing on any facts, but we are for certain things which should be inclusive in nature. Like we are for that if we are going to change, the constitutional factor should be there for every necessity change, because GST is not something which a party can do away with. It's something which concerns the whole population of this country. And if certain decision in such an important bill has to be taken, it should not be done through executive order only. It should be done with the parliamentary recommendation. So let us see if we can adopt it in the constitution or some other way should come out of it.
Step in that direction. And as regards the rate which you are saying, that the rate has been now submitted. So obviously the Department of Revenue and Finance Ministry will go through the report, and the report also will be put into consultation with the state governments because they are equal stakeholders in the whole GST implementation. So through mutual consultation between the state governments and the Government of India Finance Ministry, through the mechanism of the empowered committee of the finance ministers of the states, some decisions will be taken to take it forward. And overall, if you are asking about the impact of GST, I mean, we all know that GST on the whole, I mean, there are experts who have said that GST will contribute and add to the GDP of the country. So that is a matter of fact which is on record, and there is nothing more to add. So now we have to, as regards parliamentary procedure, let me make it very clear that I cannot comment on that. It's for the parliament's, it's for the parliament to decide.
So
Thank you.
That was one of the important consensus building measures with the states. The committee has recommended the removal.
No, I cannot comment on that 1% tax because it's a matter which is.
All right, there you heard the Finance Secretary talking about giving his first comments there as far as the recommendation of the CA is concerned. Let me bring in Rajeev Dimri, leader Indirect Tax from BMR. Mr. Dimri, can I get your first comments in terms of, when I speak to political parties right now here, we've had the Congress, we've had the JDU, we've had, of course, the CPM also here, and, of course, all are keeping their cards close to their chest. But in terms of, the tax reform, your view, and how hopeful are you for the GST to come through?
Well, first and foremost, regardless of the points of the politicians, and they're keeping their cards, which is fair. That's their job. As an industry person, as a professional, I certainly welcome GST. It is a much-needed reform, and I think we are beyond that debate. With these recommendations, I think there is a pleasant and a welcoming, rates, 17 to 18% as a standard rate, is obviously going to be a huge contributor to the eventual success of GST, because one of the key challenges of GST introduction is how would public perceive it. And these rates compared to the rates that we currently have would hopefully be a pleasant surprise for the industry to implement and for the taxpaying community, people who will bear the cost of it, to accept. So I certainly welcome this. I also welcome the recommendation that this 1% tax, which was highly sort of disputed and regressive in a GST environment, there is a recommendation that that should be scrapped. I'm only concerned with this demerit rate at 40%. That sounds very high to me. But other than that concern, everything else sounds good to me.
Mr. Dimri, just very quickly, if I were to ask you in terms of, do you think that it will impact the government's fiscal mat at the number that we are still looking at?
Well, there is a host of, committees that have looked at it. And, the key aspect is that if 15.5 is considered revenue neutral rate, if there were to be one rate and that's 15.5, and let's accept that a lot of work has gone into it, if that figure is reliable, then it should not impact the assessment. In fact, at a lower rate, more people voluntarily will comply. One expects, as part of the GST introduction, there is already an expectation that some bit of parallel trade will fold into the normal trade, and that is likely to be more if the rates are more moderate and more acceptable. So if we all agree on the sanctity of this 15.5% being revenue neutral rate, then there shouldn't be concern about government revenue.
All right, sir, thank you so much for joining us here. I appreciate all the guests, and we have had a whole host of guests, the leading tax experts in the country. We've got the market's view, and we've also got the view from different political parties to see where it is headed as far as the crucial GST, and not to forget the view of the industry as well coming in here and reacting really to the CA report that has been submitted. That crucial number, or the headline number that everybody was speculating for almost a couple of weeks or months, if I may say, has really come out, and it's now 15 to 15.5%. Now the GST Council will be looking into it, and before we slip into a break, I'll just get another political voice. TK Salangovan